While you were sleeping, the richest people on Earth quietly poured $21 billion into space startups. Not by NASA, not by governments, by billionaires and the same venture firms funding AI. They're not building this stuff to go to Mars. They're building it to change everything about how we live here on Earth. Let me show you what's really going on. If there's one thing that everyone misses about space right now, it's that it's not about rockets or the moon anymore. It's about data and about how well we understand the cosmos. Space has become the ultimate high ground for information, and whoever controls that information controls everything from your weather app on an iPhone to global shipping routes and all the way to national defense. One investor puts this perfectly: space is no longer science fiction, it is a data business, and the economics finally make sense. So what changed? And why is this happening now and not 10 years ago? Let's dive in. Before we start, please consider subscribing to the channel. I publish weekly new videos on the VC world and the startup ecosystem. Thank you. It all started with one company that flipped the entire industry on its head: SpaceX. Before SpaceX, launching 1 kilogram of stuff into space cost around $60,000. But today, it's less than $2,000. That's a 97% price drop in about a decade. To put that into perspective, imagine if a flight from New York to London suddenly went from $1,000 to $40. Suddenly, way more people can afford to fly, right? Well, that's exactly what happened with space. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about cheaper rockets. SpaceX did something that no one thought was possible. They made rockets reusable.
This is Elon Musk.
See, before SpaceX, every rocket was one-time use only. You launch it, you make it drop something in space, and then you lose it. No surprise. It's like throwing away the aircraft after its first flight. Elon looked at this and thought it was insane. So he built rockets that could land themselves and fly again and again and again and again. The first time a Falcon 9 booster landed back on Earth in 2015, it changed everything.
On a remote island in the Pacific Ocean, Falcon 1 did it.
We have liftoff.
This time around, everything worked.
For the first time, SpaceX has successfully landed its Falcon 9 rocket on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean.
Suddenly, the math made much more sense for the smaller companies and even venture-backed startups to launch into space. Before that, only governments and massive defense contractors could afford to launch anything. But now, small companies, startups, could justify putting satellites into orbit. SpaceX didn't just lower costs. They showed what was possible and just opened the gates for everyone else. This inflection point did not come from NASA or traditional aerospace firms, but was a direct result of SpaceX's new manufacturing techniques, software-driven rapid iterations, and vertical integration. Speaking of which, around 2023, when Elon was touring a reporter around Starbase, he talked about not patenting the crazy stuff SpaceX has been working on. After all, this whole open competition is a win for humanity.
That's something you patent?
No, we don't really patent things. Patents are for the weak.
Yeah, you share the, there you go.
You know, the problem is, like, patents are generally used as a blocking technique. They don't actually help advance things. They just stop others from following you.
The moral of the story here is SpaceX first collapsed the cost curve. So, what are all these startups actually doing with this newfound access to space? Let me give you some examples because this is where it gets super interesting, so let's dive in. First, Axiom Space. They raised $350 million to build a commercial space station. Not for governments, but for tourists and private research. They're literally building a hotel in orbit. Could your grandfather imagine that? I don't think so, having croissants and coffee while orbiting the Earth. Awesome. Astranis, a San Francisco startup from YC, which is putting up a network of satellites to bring internet to remote parts of the world. Places that never had reliable internet are about to get connected from space. Hadrian is building automated factories that make rocket parts 10 times faster and at half the price. They raised $117 million because every space company needs part, and they're basically becoming the Amazon warehouse for space hardware. And here's another one that blew my mind: Varda Space and Ready to Space. Those two startups are manufacturing products in space. Not for space, but made in space for Earth. Certain materials and medicines can only be made properly in zero gravity, so they make it up there and then they literally drop them back to Earth in a capsule. The introduction of new resource possibilities by these startups is why VC firms with huge names like Andreessen Horowitz and Founders Funds are placing more bets in space tech. Recently, at Lobster Capital, we invested in a fast-growing space tech company called Array Labs. They're building a real-time 3D map of the entire planet using satellites. Think of Google Earth, but live and in 3D, updated every minute or every hour. That has massive implications for everything from disaster response to tracking illegal fishing to monitoring crop health. All of these companies exist only because SpaceX made space more affordable. But there's more to this story than just cheap launches. 4 big things happened all at the same time, and when they all clicked together, space exploded. One is reusable rockets. We covered this, SpaceX made it cheap, competitors like Blue Origin followed, regardless, the tech got better. Second is satellites got little. So you might not remember this, but satellites once used to be the size of buses and weight tons. In 2015, Elon announced Starlink, his internet satellite project, and with several years of trial, tests, and errors, the satellites shrank from car size to laptop size. This is huge, no pun intended, especially considering the resource it takes to build one old satellite can now build hundreds of new ones, just smaller, less parts. 3. AI changed the game. Here's a problem nobody talks about. Space generates enormous amounts of data, like huge. In the old days, it would take years for humans to look through satellite images and figure out what they were seeing. But now, AI can process the very same amount of data in a matter of days or sometimes hours. This means that the feedback loop from launch to collecting data, learning from it, and iterating over went from taking years to taking weeks. Hence, you can build a business around space data because you're not waiting forever to make sense of what you're collecting. 4 is global tension. Every country is sooner but surely realizing if we don't have our own space capabilities, we're dependent on someone else for critical information. Weather data, GPS, communication, and surveillance, all of it comes increasingly from space. And no country wants to rely on another for that. So everyone's racing up and gearing up to build their own space infrastructure, which means more launches, more satellites, and more investments. When these 4 forces converged, the space stopped being a niche industry. In fact, it became what investors called a platform industry. Think of the App Store. Apple doesn't make every app. They build the platform and millions of developers build on top of it. That's exactly what space is becoming. It's the infrastructure on which everyone else builds on. And that exact infrastructure followed by an accessibility is the real moneymaker. Regardless, why are VC firms suddenly obsessed with space? It's simple, the risk changed. For decades, space was seen as this black hole for money. You could pour billions and billions into it and maybe someday get something back. But SpaceX proved something really important. You can make money in space too, repeatedly and reliably. That insurance of innovation single-handedly changed everything for investors. Now, VCs have clear ideas of how to make returns. Option 1, space as infrastructure. Just like AWS sells cloud computing to other companies, space companies can sell data, launches, and satellite services to everyone else. And it's a subscription model. Investors love that. Option 2, Earth companies that need space. A shipping company using satellite tracking to optimize global routes. A farm using satellite images to know exactly where to water the crops. An insurance company pricing flood risk based on real-time satellite data. Someone has to provide that data, and what if that someone is investable? Here's what one VC told me. In 2030, asking if a company uses space data will be like asking if they use the internet today. And whoever builds that infrastructure first gets paid by everyone else. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend this is all sunshine and rockets. Space is still one of the hardest industries to succeed in. Hardware takes forever to build. You can just code something and ship it the next day. A satellite might take 2-3 years from the concept sketch to a full-fledged launch. Mention not about regulations. You're dealing with the FAA, the FCC, international treaties, one wrong form and your launch gets delayed 6 months. And to top all this, the physics doesn't care about your business plan. If your satellite breaks in orbit, well, you just have to see it happen and iterate again. So yeah, a lot of those startups will fail. That's just reality. But here's the difference between space and, say, crypto or social media hype. You can't fake a satellite launch. You can't fake a working GPS system, and you can't fake orbital data contracts with the DoD. There's real stuff being built here, real services being delivered, real revenue in some cases. So if you're thinking about investing or just trying to understand where this is going, watch for 1. Does the company have a technology that no one else does? 2. Is the team legit and competent enough? Because remember, you can't really send someone in space with duct tape to fix something if it breaks. And 3, is there a clear customer or is it just a cool idea on paper? So where are we now with all of this? Well, we're starting to see consolidation already. Smaller startups are being bought by big defense contractors. Data companies are merging with AI firms. Hardware manufacturers are positioning themselves as the infrastructure layer. It's the same pattern we saw in the early internet. First, you build the picks and shovels, then the platforms, then the applications. Right now, we're somewhere between the pick and shovels and the platforms. Launch companies like SpaceX, they're the pick and shovels. Satellite manufacturers, pick and shovels as well. And of course, you must have guessed what's coming next. With every gold rush comes a lot of noise. Not every company that raises a round will survive. The companies making the most money won't necessarily be the ones sending stuff to orbit. They'll be the companies that make it easy for everyone else to use orbit. Think about the actual gold rush in the 1800s. Most miners went broke. You know who got rich? The people selling shovels and the tools to the miners. Same thing here. The real winners will be the infrastructure companies. The ones providing launches, data processing, satellite network, the boring stuff that everyone needs. So now, let's try to imagine together, and I was trying to imagine shooting this, what are going to be the next 10 years? Well, in the morning we wake up and check the weather. The data came from a private satellite constellation. We get in the car and use the GPS, powered by a mix of government and private satellites. Our delivery has arrived to our front doors. The route was optimized using real-time space tracking. We read a news article about a wildfire detected and monitored by orbital sensors. Almost every interaction we would have that day touched space in some way, and we didn't even think about it once. Private space stations are operating normally. Companies are manufacturing products in zero gravity. Some rare materials are even being pulled from asteroids and brought back to Earth. And the companies that built all this infrastructure, they're getting paid by everyone, and this is why investors are piling in now. It's not about rockets or about Mars. It's about building the data highways and orbital systems that the entire economy will depend on in 10 years. So that's what's really happening with that $21 billion. It's not really about exploring space. It's about using space to completely transform how we live on Earth. Maybe one molecule manufactured in space will solve a critical disease here on Earth. And whether you're an investor, an entrepreneur, or just someone trying to understand where the world is going, this is a shift you can't ignore. Because 10 years from now, space won't be some new flashy thing. It will be as normal as the internet or AI. And the people building in space now, they're not the weirdos. They're the smart people building the AWS for space. Just like the internet became invisible infrastructure, so will space. The question isn't whether it's happening. It's already happening. The question is, are you paying attention?